Why are old Hollywood stars still so recognizable today? What happened behind the scenes to take them from being some girl next door to the star of the silver screen? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at everything that happened behind the scenes and how the studios took these actors and shaped them into the icons we know today. We're going to be taking a look at the costume design, makeup, plastic surgery, and everything you didn't even know existed. And with that, let's jump right in. There were many ways an actor could get discovered in old Hollywood. From simply turning up on set, like Shirley Temple's mother did, demanding a role for her daughter, to waiting outside the studio gates day after day in order to be chosen as a background actor for whatever they were filming that day. Getting discovered was key. Many actors also turned to casting agencies to help them, checking in daily for updates on available roles. It was no secret that the way to success meant working your way up, with the biggest stars all starting out as background actors, in a bid to simply get noticed by the studios. Young women and men often ended up on the casting couch, on their journey from working themselves up from being an extra to a star. Whereas the term casting couch simply implies auditioning in front of a room full of studio executives and directors, the term has become synonymous with the sexual abuse and grooming going on behind the scenes in Hollywood. Even back in the 1920s and 30s, many big stars, including Joan Crawford and Clark Gable, used this as a way to propel their careers. Darryl F. Zanuck was the head of the 20th Century Fox Studios at the time, and this man was only one of many predators who roamed around Hollywood at the time. He would set aside time in his busy schedule each day to graciously audition a few young actresses in the bedroom adjoining his office. Agents also exploited actors in the same way, promising fame and money in exchange for a few simple favors. But what happened once these actors were finally noticed? How did they transform from the girl next door to the star of the silver screen? First things first came the 7-year contract. If you would be interested in learning more about the implications of the 7-year contract, I did an entire video about that where we discussed the power and control that these studios had over their actors at the time. But as we discussed in that video, actors' jobs at the time looked very different from what we know today. The work consisted of a more regimented 9-to-5 schedule. When actors were not currently signed up for new roles, especially the newer, lesser-known stars, their days mainly consisted of acting lessons. And these acting and voice lessons were primarily taught in-house, teaching the actors how to talk and carry themselves, preparing them not only for their upcoming roles, but the big role of being a star. Due to their strenuous contracts at the time, actors were forced to follow very strict rules set out by the studios. That covered everything from how they were to behave in public to their personal bodily autonomy. And if you would be interested in a video where we discuss these rules in depth, please let me know in the comments down below, because it's something that I find extremely interesting, yet simultaneously very terrifying. Once an actor or an actress was deemed for success, it would not be uncommon for them to undergo several plastic and cosmetic surgeries. And this often happened all before they were ever cast in their big lead role. The world of Hollywood has long been a proponent of plastic surgery, long before it ever made its way into the mainstream, with the first procedures dating back to the 1930s. It is said that the beautiful Mary Pickford was one of the very first victims to the wind tunnel facelift look, as the first facelifts of the time were done by simply lifting and moving back the skin of the face, resulting in a permanent look of surprise. Other stars at the time were no stranger to going under the knife either, with a headline from August 1930 reading, "How Hollywood Submits to the Knife of the Plastic Surgeon in the Name of Beauty." Fanny Brice had a rhinoplasty, as did Bibi Daniels and Vivian Segal. These stars of the black and white movies were the first consumers of the growing market of plastic surgery. But it didn't stop there. The beautiful Rita Hayworth originally had a low hairline, which was moved up by electrolysis to give her a, quote, less ethnic look and transform her into a more classic beauty. Norma Jean had her chin and nose done on her way to becoming the Marilyn we know today. At the time, their plastic surgery was not being discussed the same way our culture seems to do today. This could be in part because the surgery that was being done was just a few natural-looking tweaks meant to enhance the unique beauty of these stars, instead of overhauling their complete look. And secondly, at the time, the public was simply unaware of the fact that this was being done behind the scenes, since this was not being disclosed by the studios for the fear of ruining the carefully crafted persona of these stars. And then you couple that with the little knowledge that the public had at the time around plastic surgery, it does make sense why these procedures were able to happen so quietly behind the scenes. While filming, there would be a constant stream of hairdressers, manicurists, seamstresses, and makeup artists to make sure these actors and actresses look their best at all times. And that is one of the biggest differences between old Hollywood glamour and the styling of actors today. The focus used to lay on trying to enhance the natural beauty of the actors as best as possible, instead of trying to fit them into a pre-existing mold. This meant complementing makeup application to their features, matching colors to their undertones, and having a costume designer on call who painstakingly designed and tailored each item of clothing to the actor or actress's unique body type. So now I thought it would be interesting to discuss each one of these topics a little bit more in depth, since I don't know about you, but I'm obsessed with the old Hollywood glamour. So to start off, I do think it's important to set the stage and take a look of the beauty standards at the time, since one thing we all know by now is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Or better put, beauty is a constantly revolving door of unattainable societal expectations that most of us will never be able to achieve, and even if only for a few fleeting seconds, before the next set of trends are pushed out, predicting how our bodies and faces are actually meant to look. Simply put, the beauty standards at the time were very similar to today, in the sense that they too were ever-changing. That is exactly the reason we are able to go from the masculine silhouette of the 1920s to the sultry, sexy silhouette of the 1930s to the structured big shoulders of the 40s, followed by the wasp waist and flowy skirts of the 50s, only to start the cycle anew in the 60s with the same boxy silhouette we saw in the 20s. These trends are not only representative of the silhouettes and clothing popular at the times, but give us a clear indication of the types of bodies that were seen as beautiful and that the public were trying to attain. Because the fact of the matter is that no curvy body is going to look as good in a flapper style dress as that of someone with a flatter chest and more of a straight up and down body type. And the same goes vice versa for someone trying to squeeze into a traditional 1950s dress. The difficult thing was at the time that these trends were all encompassing. Because trends moved much slower than they do today, customers were only able to find these items in department stores at the time, meaning they had no choice but to participate in these styles, whether they wanted to or not. This meant that undergarments were an integral part to attaining the right body type, in order for these garments to lay over the body as intended. Girdles compressed the stomach and thighs to give an overall flatter appearance, making it easier to fit into straighter silhouettes, whereas a bullet bra and corset on the other extreme help to achieve the more feminine silhouettes of the later styles. And you may be asking yourself, what exactly did this have to do with the old Hollywood stars? Well, the answer is quite simple. Old Hollywood stars were seen as these ephemeral beings that graced the silver screens. They were an inspiration to many women at the time and an object of lust for many men. They epitomized the beauty standards at the time, and they were chosen for exactly those reasons. We think of the bias cut dresses of the 1930s. We instantly think of Jean Harlow. Or the strong shoulders of the 1940s are often attributed to Joan Crawford, who was known for her wide shoulders. Not to mention the impact of Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor on the fashions of the 1950s. These stars have become synonymous with beauty, style, and the trends of the various decades. But one thing that has stayed consistent throughout the decades and continues to be relevant today is Hollywood's desire for thinness. No matter the trends of the various decades or the ever-revolving door of silhouettes, thinness has been cemented in Hollywood as a marker for beauty. Stars were no stranger to being put on diets once their contracts were signed at the studios, with the studios even going so far as to prohibit them from gaining weight, resulting in a breach of contract if they did so. There was one story regarding Greta Garbo that I found particularly interesting. Now, Greta Garbo was an actress who originally came from Sweden, and long before she moved to the US, she was already trying to make a name for herself in Sweden. At the time, she was described as having a beautiful face, but being somewhat heavy of body. In 1925, she auditioned for this Swedish director, Moritz Stiller, or I guess Swedish would be like Stiller, I don't know. Moritz Stiller, that's too German. Who found her incredibly beautiful, but he told her, "But miss, you are much too fat." He then proceeded to demand that she lose 20 pounds, which she did, and she ended up getting the role. Soon after that, she met with MGM's Louis B. Mayer and the director Stiller in Berlin, where Mayer tried to convince both the actress and the director to relocate to Hollywood. His one requirement for Greta to do so was to once again lose even more weight, saying that in America, we don't like fat women. It is reported that following this meeting, Greta did go on a 3-week-long spinach diet, where she did lose the weight and was able to stay in it for the rest of her career, but did remain, quote, slender, shapeless, suggestive of a dangerous lack of physical vitality throughout her movie career. Now, Greta Garbo was not the only actress, or even actor for that matter, who underwent this in their careers. Actress Molly O'Day reportedly had an operation to cut away excess fat in 1929, and Catherine Grant even died due to complications with the extreme calorie restrictions she was put under. What is interesting with Greta Garbo, though, is that once she lost all this weight, she was left with extremely strong and prominent cheekbones, giving rise at the time to a new beauty standard. Before the mid-1920s, high cheekbones were always seen as more of a physical deformity than an ideal to strive for in the West, with many magazines before that point giving advice on how to distract from prominent cheekbones, likening them to an overly defined nose or chin. Before Garbo, softer, rounder faces were preferred, carrying an air of youthfulness and innocence. Just think of the faces of silent movie stars, such as Mary Pickford or Lillian Gish. Is that how you say it? Whose faces certainly felt more childlike compared to stars like Greta Garbo and Katharine Hepburn. Black and white movies gave way to Hollywood's continuing obsession with high cheekbones, with many directors at the time claiming that good bone structure was a must for becoming a star. Black and white movies relied on extreme contrast and used strong lighting in order to achieve that effect. Many directors claimed that in order for a face to look beautiful under the harsh lighting, it needed a strong bone structure and especially strong cheekbones for the light to reflect off. And although it does make perfect sense put into those terms, it does not take away from the fact that high cheekbones continue to be a beauty ideal for many, even as the stark black and white movies gave way to softer, diffuse Technicolor films. Around the 1920s and 1930s is also when we first see makeup becoming available for mass consumption. Before this point, it had only been used under the harsh stage lighting and theaters for the audience to be clearly able to see the faces of the actors from many meters away. But with the boom of cosmetics, this meant that audiences were able to recreate their looks of their favorite actors at home. One player was integral to not only making stars shine on the big screen, but making beauty products accessible for all was Max Factor. Max Factor was originally from Poland and fled to America with his family in 1904, where he eventually opened up a cosmetic store in LA that quickly became a staple to not only actresses, but the audience as well. It all started in 1914, when he saw a movie for the first time. He found the heavy stage paint absolutely terrifying, and it ended up developing the first makeup for film that he called flexible grease paint, to help the actors look more natural on screen. That was only the start, as he ended up developing many of the makeup products that we all continue to rely heavily on today, including concealer, lip gloss, and even the mascara applicator. He was the first at the time to implement the color harmony principles, where makeup shades are coordinated to complement a woman's natural complexion, eye, and hair coloring. He ended up releasing the Max Factor Color Harmony chart to help the public better understand how to best complement their own features, always with the underlying message that the correct use of makeup could help the everyday woman achieve the Hollywood look at home. The chart included the right cosmetic shades for blondes, brunettes, brownettes, and redheads based on their complexion. And just side note, I've never heard the term brownette before. I guess nowadays we just lump together every brown and black hair under the term brunette, or you say someone has black hair, and I guess that's technically in this terms a brunette, and a brownette is someone with brown hair. Just tell me if I'm the only one who did not know that brownettes were a thing, because I feel quite stupid. As well as lipstick and eyeshadow shade suggestions and even basic skincare tips. He crafted looks for Ava Gardner, Jean Harlow, Marlene Dietrich, and many more, all meant to enhance their own natural beauty, while simultaneously helping them to become iconic in their own right. No matter the looks on screen, the public was quick to follow at home. As makeup became easily accessible in the 1920s, the boom in makeup consumption only continued to pick up as the decades progressed, with women eagerly recreating the looks of their favorite stars at home. The same was true for hairstyles. No matter what the old Hollywood stars decided to do with their hair, it was sure to set off instant trends, with women eager to copy it. The flapper era was defined by the bob that was first introduced by Clara Bow and Louise Brooks. The Marcel finger waves became extremely popular in the 1920s and 30s, which instantly conjure up images of Marlene Dietrich. In the 1940s, as women entered the workforce and particularly started working in factories during the Second World War, the government encouraged actresses to wear updos in their movies, knowing that it would act as a sort of inspiration to the public. The upswept hairstyles helped women keep the hair out of their faces and especially away from the machinery they were working with. And just like that, the updos instantly came down after the war ended, when women started copying the voluminous curls of Rita Hayworth or the side-swept mane of Veronica Lake. Wigs were also commonplace in old Hollywood, as creating the hairstyles were time-intensive, constantly requiring a hairstylist on set. Wigs also helped to maintain the continuity, ensuring that the hairstyle remained the same during filming. For the filming of MGM's Marie Antoinette of 1938, the Max Factor company made 903 white wigs for the cast, plus an additional 1,200 wigs for extras. They even submitted 9 binders full of photos for the wig styling and makeup that was to be used throughout the film. But the one thing that personally comes to mind, more than the makeup and the hair, is of course the costumes. Costume design in old Hollywood was and continues to be iconic, continuing to inspire fashion to this day, becoming synonymous with glamour itself. The painted red lips, the voluminous curls, the striking cat eyes, and of course, the dress. The dress has had many iterations over the course of a few decades, but they all share a few similarities: accentuating the best parts of the body, having a tailored yet feminine feel, and of course, most importantly, drama. Costume design for film as we know it did not exist until the boom of Hollywood's golden age, which started in the mid-1910s and 1920s. Before that point, it was not uncommon for actors to simply bring costumes with them from home for whatever they were filming that day. But an increase in audience meant an increase in budget, so the studio started investing more in the costumes for their stars. By the late 1940s, the studios were focusing on lavish costumes suitable for their big stars. Stars often had their costumes made and designed by the same costume designer over the course of their careers. This meant that the designers had an innate understanding of the actors' bodies, what silhouettes suited them the best, what fabrics accentuated the best features, and what colors brought them to life on the Technicolor screen. This ongoing relationship between designers and actors are one of the main differences between costume design today and that of old Hollywood. Nowadays, costumes are designed first with the movie in mind and then adapted to fit the actor, whereas it used to be primarily centered around the actor and then adapted to the film. That is the main reason stars looked so at home in their costumes back in the day, compared to today, where we often see stunning, interesting costumes, yes, but they often feel a little bit off on the actor themselves. When we think of Joan Crawford, we instantly think of her strong, tailored suits designed by Adrian, who was the first to embrace the star's strong shoulders as an asset instead of a flaw. Designing her outfits with that in mind, he purposefully drew more attention to her shoulders, adding shoulder pads and even furs to the area. But what about Jean Harlow and her sexy slinky dresses, or Greta Garbo and Katharine Hepburn? All of these looks are once again designed by Adrian. Together with Edith Heath, they managed to propel Hollywood into its golden age and were responsible for the star quality we still know today. It was not until the 1950s that things slowly started to change. At the time, there was a sudden influx of costume designers all coming from Broadway to join the film industry. Costume design up until that point in Hollywood was separated into different departments for different genders, as well as certain designers solely focusing on outfits for one star. However, things worked a little bit differently on Broadway. The Broadway designers were used to designing costumes for an entire cast all at once to focus on a more cohesive look, as well as allowing for a bigger range of extras in the cast. With that, we started to see a boom in big movies such as Cleopatra and Ben-Hur around this time, where they had to design thousands of costumes for the cast. This led to movies becoming too extravagant and expensive over time, resulting in massive budget cuts. Studios ended up auctioning up entire costume departments, leaving very little to be archived, meaning that many of the beautiful costumes of old Hollywood movies continue to exist only on film. Looking at the big picture, from plastic surgery, weight loss, makeup, and costume design, it is truly no wonder that the studios at the time managed to create these absolute icons. And I do think that the answer in how they were able to do that is twofold. On one hand, they focused on enhancing the star's natural beauty and disguising or even tweaking a few flaws, using makeup and clothing only to accentuate that beauty even more, making them become instantly recognizable for their own unique looks. But on the other hand, in the process of doing that, they did commodify their beauty, turning them into a product for public consumption. And I think nothing illustrates that more than this quote by Rita Hayworth. She says, "Every man I knew went to bed with Gilda and woke up with me. All I wanted was just what everybody else wants, to be loved." And all of that being said, it does leave me with a few personal thoughts to ponder. In a lot of ways, the old Hollywood stars paved the way to unrealistic beauty standards that we still have today. Beauty standards that these stars themselves would not have been able to reach without all these people working behind the scenes. But one thing I do take as a positive, and I do think gave these men and women their star quality, was the fact that they played into their own unique beauty. In a world where we have something called Instagram face, and influencers online are all part of this homogenous stream of faces, it is extremely inspiring to see unique beauty being praised, where it was not about making you look like someone else, but instead of the best version of yourself. And I would love to see a return to a more diverse look on beauty, an inclusion of different beauty for every race, gender, ethnicity, and body type, because everyone's unique beauty deserves to be praised. And with that, that was the video today. If you liked it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and next week we're gonna be taking a look at the first season of Girls Next Door. We're gonna be switching it up a little bit because I do love my 2000s fashion, nostalgia, everything. I am a little child of the 2000s. So if you'd like to see that, or if you have any other topic suggestions, please leave them in the comments down below. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.